Welcome to the Pen to Publish podcast from the two Alexas. If you're planning to pen and publish or are penning at the moment, then you're definitely in the right place. We talk all about the writing and publishing process, and we know this podcast is helping hundreds of writers all over the globe. I'm Alexa Whitten, author, typesetter, and independent publisher. And
I'm Alexa Tewkesbury, author, editor, and proofreader. We have many writing resources for you, including our brand new Pen to Published website, where you can get all the show notes and guest information. We've interviewed some really interesting writers and authors, and there's also our Writers Refinery Facebook group, which is available for you to join. We love getting feedback, so do please leave us a review, and don't forget to hit subscribe so that all the latest episodes pop up in your podcast feed. So let's get started.
Hi there, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Pen to Publish podcast. And today we have the wonderful Anne Ball, who we worked on her book. And Anne's going to be coming in and talking about her book today, and also the new project she's going to be working on as well, which is not involving us, unfortunately, but all will be explained as to why that will be. But Anne, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm just going to do a little intro about you and what you do and who you are. And then Alexa Tewkesbury, I've got a really bad cold. I've been feeling really a bit rubbish over the last weekend. So I'm going to take a bit of a backseat on this interview, and Alexa Tewkesbury is going to be working her magic. So Anne did her teacher training when she was 20, knowing that she was meant to teach in some capacity. When she moved to the Northeast, she retrained in the complementary therapies in 1994 and started working in various centres and mobiles as therapist and teaching in FE colleges and in the community. She took premises on and started offering day retreats, which was the start of her Women's Circles adventures. On a shamanic course in Glastonbury, she experienced a ritual for women, and she was overcome by the experience and needed to know more. She found a Women's Circle course, which involved cacao and free dancing, and after 12 days training, started to offer her own circles, which happened to be also in lockdown. As a tutor, writing manuals is part of the job, so it was an easy transition to writing to books. Anne took part in a 22-day online circle with author Lynette Allen, which I know we're looking forward to hearing more about that. This then led to an invite to co-write a book on the experience. A month's masterclass in writing and supporting led her to submitting her chapter along with 33 other women. This book was released in June 2022, but it gave Anne the confidence and inspiration to write in her own right. And in May, she started writing How to Set Up Women's Circles, which was released in December 2022. And that's the book that Alexa and I helped her with. Anne's next book, On Cacao, title pending, is due for release in the next few months. And this is what we're going to be talking about as well today, because you've done this slightly differently. So we were just talking before we press record, we were talking about how we met. And I think we can gladly say it was the lovely Northern Lass Lounge again, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, the great Northern Lass Lounge. Straight away, it was like you have to book the two Alexas to help you with your book.
Lovely Kylie Dixon. We do have her a lot to be thankful for. And it was Alexa Tewkesbury who introduced me to Kylie Dixon. So if it wasn't for Alexa Tewkesbury, none of this would be happening now.
But it's all had this kind of massive snowball effect.
It really has.
It's been amazing.
It really has.
Just quickly, for people, anybody who might possibly be tuning into this for the very first time, not having listened to us before, the Northern Lass Lounge is a group of Northern lasses, basically, in the Northeast. They have a Facebook group, they have in-person meetups, and it's basically women in business supporting each other.
So, Anne, tell us a little bit before we start. And honestly, I am going to be passing over to Alexa Tewkesbury because my throat already is hurting. But just tell us briefly, quickly, the first couple of books that you've written that we don't sort of we don't really talk about your first two books, but you've written a poetry book, and obviously you've this book that we talked about in your intro. So tell us a little bit about those.
So the first book that I got involved with was with Lynette Allen after attending the 22-day online circle. She lives in Bali, by the way.
Oh,
So it's very exotic. We had ceremonies and we met the child that we used to be, the woman that we are now, and the woman that we are to become. And we were invited to write about our experiences. So that was in December 2021, and in January we had a month's masterclass writing, and she gave us some real good inspiration about how to write and how to do a beginning, a middle, and an end. And for me it was just amazing. It was like a wonderful process that was just unfurling in front of me, and I just absolutely adored the process of it. And then we had to keep on sending our chapter back, and she called it rinsing. She said that she kept on rinsing it and like putting it through the wash and then sending it back. And then eventually we got the finished article, and we had to sign it off to say that we were happy with it. That got released in June. I was actually in Belfast at the time, and it was the Queen's Jubilee or the Queen's birthday or something, June the 3rd. And it got released first of all on Kindle and then in printed form, which was really exciting. Now, I actually think Lynette flicked a switch in my brain, because I just felt really inspired by the whole writing process. I loved the whole aspect of it. So I immediately started writing my next book, which was the how to set up women's circles. And I've got a bit of a butterfly brain, and I write how I feel on the day. And if I'm really interested in a subject, I'll like immerse myself in it, and I go a bit feral. My husband just opens the door and like pushes a cup of coffee and a sandwich and then shuts the door and retreats really, really quickly. So when I actually gave you my collection of musings and work, I have to take my hat off to you two. How you pulled it all together and made sense out of my scattered brain it was quite awesome, really, really awesome, and it has helped me with the next book that I wrote. In the meantime, I had a collection of poems, just 16 poems that I'd written over the last 3 or 4 years. And as an experiment, as you two were doing your professional roles, I thought, let's see if I can do it all by myself. And I did release it. It's available on Amazon, and I have sold quite a few copies. And it was a really interesting experience, but I know that I need to hand it over to the professionals. I'm not doing that again.
Self-publishing's hard. People just think, I can write a book, I can just upload it from Word, I can just whack it on Amazon. But there's so much more involved if you want it looking a professional book, and you want it looking, you want it to stand out, because there are so many people doing that now. You really need to be able to look as though you are publishing something that is going to grab people's attention. But hey, poetry book up there, it's selling. That's the main thing, right? So
yeah,
and I think that's because that's quite specialist in some ways, isn't it, poetry? So yeah, I think you did really well with that.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that this 22-day circle is sort of what kick-started you. And had you thought before, if I write a book that could really help my business, or did it just all come out of that 22 days?
It literally came out of that 22 days when I saw the process and I saw how it could be done, and I saw the end project, the finished article. It was just absolutely enthused me and just really excited me. I just knew that I wanted that experience again. I had to do that, and I felt very comfortable in writing with writing all the training manuals in the past. For me, I find writing quite easy. It's just that it's sometimes a bit chaotic.
Well, I wanted to ask you about your planning because, again, for listeners, Anne's book is divided up into months, and there are activities for the different months and the different seasons, and each section just contains a kind of mix of different things that you can do within your circle and things that can be done at home. And so when you're planning something like that, I feel as though you need a kind of really good overall idea of what you want the book to be and to look like when you start. But how did you go about sort of researching it and pulling activities together and finding, because you've got delicious recipes in there for oils and lovely things, and there was some lovely scented things for Christmas time as well. And just how did you start? Did you already know where to go to start to look for things, or was the research quite a big part of it?
A lot of the book has been written on my experiences with being a complementary therapist and a trainer. So meditations, some of the meditations had already been written by myself. Some of the poems had already been written by myself. Aromatherapy blends, I just had to kind of tweak them slightly because I wanted them to be in season with like Yule and Lammas and things like that. So I did do a fair bit of research. As I was writing the book, I actually attended a year's witch school. So I entered into a witch school, a little bit like Hogwarts, as a witchling. And that kind of helped me plan a little bit as well, because it was very much to do with the pagan ceremonies and the pagan seasons. And then, of course, we're ruled by the moon. So a lot of it was to do with the moon cycles as well. So yes, there was research. I didn't just kind of pluck everything out of my mind, but I love researching. I really, really get a kick out of it.
And
I
did
think,
you just
yeah, I think, sorry, Alexa, I think I
no.
remember you saying when I was working with you, you're just like, oh, I got to do a bit more research on this. And I remember you saying you really enjoyed the research part. You've got to be careful not to go down the research rabbit warren, though, and get too stuck in the research, which some authors can do. But I do remember you saying whenever we were messaging or whatever, you're just like, oh, I'll just do a bit more research. And I know you did say you really enjoyed that side of the writing.
Yeah, I find that side quite overwhelming. Like I'm in awe of historical novelists with all that detail that they found, and they go and visit places and get more. And I maybe I'm lazy, I don't know, but I just think, I just know I'll keep it in the present, and then I know that. And how have you found then that this has helped your business?
Well, I run women's circles on a monthly basis. I'm about to run a second one as well, so I'll be running two. And people are definitely more interested in women's circles over the last couple of years. And I am getting people who want to run their own women's circles coming to me to sit in my circle. They want to have the book, but they also want to be in with the author as well. They want to have a little bit of the experience. It's definitely helped my business, I would say. I've definitely had more interest.
Would you say that because also people are buying your book, so they're then going, oh, actually, I hadn't actually thought of that, or they see your book in shops? Because I know you're in quite a lot of independent bookshops, aren't you? Do you think people are getting in touch with you because of the book? Or would you say that people are buying the book because they know you, or would you say it's a bit of both?
I would say it's a bit of both. I'm getting people from all over the world buying the book. I'm getting regular updates from Amazon to say that I've sold books in Canada and Australia and Amsterdam and all places, which is absolutely awesome. I'm getting contacted through social media for people to say that they loved my book, and or I've used your poem in the women's circle today, and you've really given me some inspiration, and that is why I wrote the book. It was a collection of resources that I just wanted to put together, and felt that it was lacking. There wasn't anything there to help people to set up women's circles. The books that were out there were very dated, very old-fashioned, and I felt that there was definitely a gap in the market. I wrote the book for me.
Because you're your ideal client.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And I suppose you could visualize all the beautiful graphics and things, because it's that kind of book, isn't it? It's very visually appealing. Because I'm going to call you Alexa 2, Alexa Whitten, because I've not called you Alexa 2 in ages. When we first started this podcast, we were always Alexa 1 and Alexa 2, and then we've kind of become Alexa W and Alexa T, and it's morphed. But anyway, Alexa 2 did an amazing job with the design. She has made it look so, it's one of those books that you just kind of want to just absorb because it looks so beautiful. And she also did, I think, a great job on the structural edit, because whereas I was working a lot on the words and just the flow of the text, I think we thought a bit differently, didn't we? Because I thought perhaps the order of things within each section didn't matter too much, but you felt that the order was important. So Alexa did work on the structural edit while she was doing the typesetting.
I didn't want to put Anne too much down a corridor, but I thought the way that it would be used, I thought it would just work if each month was set out similarly. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. And I think actually Anne and I were very in sync with, because when I gave you the test pages of, I think this looks great, I remember because you had some lovely images drawn, Anne, some really lovely graphics, and you had some fantastic photos done by Sarah Louise Johnson, who is another member of the Northern Lass Lounge. And the graphics I just saw working really well with segmenting the book up so that each month you sort of had a structure of how each month would then go. And I think it's worked quite well with your book. And
I think from a member of the public's point of view, picking that book up, I think they would really benefit from the fact that they knew that the meditation was in a certain part of each of the months, and they knew that the poems and the readings were going to follow. So that really, really worked really well.
Yeah. And I think your recipes, some of your incense recipes that you've put together, some of your drink recipes, you've done some lovely herbal teas and tinctures and incantations and meditations. I just think the whole thing just works really, really well. And it was almost like it just all came together really easily as well. It wasn't a difficult project to work on.
I think as well, when I got you two on board and then you started asking me questions, I was like, of course, why didn't I think of putting that in? So you were reading it from a member of the public's point of view, and you were seeing all the little gaps that I'd left and all the little holes that I'd left. And it just kind of really helped to bring it all together.
Yeah.
So it's the objectivity, isn't it, that is so important in the editorial process, structural and line editing.
Yeah.
And then I know you're selling on Amazon, but I think you're in bookshops as well.
Yeah, so I've gone around some local shops, and also shops that sell things that would be in keeping with the book, like incense and witch things and aromatherapy oils. So I would say in the 20-mile radius, I'm probably in about 12 shops.
That's
brilliant.
brilliant.
I know, and they've all been really, really enthusiastic and very, very welcoming, which, you know, when you first approach somebody, you're just expecting a big fat no. And then when they go in, no, come on in, welcome. And oh, this book's amazing. Yes, we'll definitely stock it. It's been lovely to have that. Yes.
Yes, yeah. And it's just more exposure. And it's such a lovely cover for them to have on a bookshelf as well, for people to see, to pick up and browse.
And how did Alexa too know that she chose my favorite color?
I just, you know,
She's got a sense.
yeah, but I could tell with what you were wearing as well in your photo shoot. So you kind of get an idea, but it also is one of my favorite colors as well. And I think, you know, people talk about woo woo and being in tune and all the rest of it. And some people just, you know, roll their eyes and go, yeah, whatever. But actually, I think creatives are more in tune than we realize. Because Kylie and I, when we work together, we often think of exactly the same cover for a book, and we haven't spoken about it, but yet we visualized exactly the same thing. And I think when you work with a open-minded, creative person, and you're open to woo-woo, like I know you even use that term on the back of your book. I think when you're open to the fact that, you know, we're all connected, you just pick up on this stuff. Right?
Yeah, well, you made it very, very easy for me, I must say, and it made me very excited as well.
Oh,
just a shame we're not working on your next project, but never mind.
Yeah. And on the next project, so you're writing. Well, it's not your second book, but it's you know, your second book moving on from the one that we worked with. And so what is different about this book? This new book that you're working on?
So this book is a standalone book, but it's also a follow-on book to How to Set Up Women's Circles, because I purposely left out cacao in the book, because I wanted to write a book just purely on the ceremony of drinking cacao, either in a group or in the home by yourself. But I couldn't help but bring some of my bakery and catering skills into it, because before I became a complementary therapist, I trained as a chef and a baker. I wanted to have recipes in there that kind of helped. I wanted recipes in there to kind of benefit people in their ceremonies, to feel that cacao is just not to drink, it's to eat as well.
I did not know that about you, that you were a baker.
No. I feel as though your life hasn't been long enough for all these different aspects of it. No, that yes, God, who'd think you could write a whole book about cacao? Would you want to just explain what cacao is, in case anybody, because I know what the word looks like written down, but if anyone hasn't come across it before.
Yeah, so cacao is pure chocolate, and it's grown in hot countries. There's a certain part of the world that it's grown in, and it's not been processed. So the chocolate that we buy in the shop has been heated, and all the healing nutrients have been extracted from it to make this lovely tasting chocolate that we're used to, with lots of dairy and sugar added to it. So cacao is the pure chocolate. It needs to be grown in a particular way, it needs to be harvested in a particular way, and it needs to have the cacao beans processed in a certain way to hold on to the healing nutrients. Now, the healing nutrients are fantastic for women as well as men, but they really, really work in tune with what we are wanting and needing in our lives. So lots of vitamin B's. It's got magnesium, potassium, it's got copper in it, chromium, I'm just trying to think now. You put me on the
I think
spot.
so.
But they're really, really fantastic nutrients. They've got very high antioxidants in cacao, higher than blueberries.
Oh, I
Wow.
didn't know
Yeah,
that.
No.
yeah.
So if you buy, like I've got I wasn't say a tin, but it's a cardboard thingy of cocoa, not drinking chocolate, but cocoa from a supermarket. If it says cocoa, that's not pure.
So cocoa
That,
would have come from cacao originally, but then it would have been heat treated,
right.
and that's how they would extract it. Cacao is very difficult to work with. It's got a lot of cocoa butter in it, and to make chocolate and to make chocolate drinks, it needs to have a lot of the fats taken out of it. So that's why it's heat treated. Whereas cacao drinkers, we embrace the cacao butter in it, and we also only heat it to a certain temperature, because if you heat it too much, then it actually kills off all the nutrients. It's pointless drinking it if you're drinking it for healing properties.
That's so interesting because the dark chocolate, the bitter dark chocolate is meant to be better for you, isn't it? Than
If you buy the green and blacks 70% or the 80% chocolate, that is as close to cacao as you can get, just from the
right,
supermarket. Yeah.
right.
Or 90% even for those that really want to go down that route.
Yeah.
I do like
So
a bit of green and blacks, dark
yes.
chocolate. Yeah, yeah.
So cacao is an acquired taste because we are so used to drinking hot chocolate
Mm,
and eating chocolate. We expect it to be exactly the same. And the first time you try cacao, you may be surprised how bitter it is, and how thick it tastes at the back of your throat. It's definitely something that you've got to kind of get used to. So when I make it in circle, I actually make it a bit more user friendly. So I use plant milks and I use things like agave nectar to sweeten it. Again, we're trying to put healthy things into the drink so that when somebody's drinking it, they're still getting like lovely nutrients and healing properties from the whole drink.
mm. Now we mentioned at the beginning that we're not working on this book with you. It's to do with funding, and I think perhaps it wasn't quite what you thought in the end. But could we just talk a bit about how you got funding? Because I know that when I was editing your other book, Women's Circles, that you'd got some grant because you emailed me about some grant funding. So how do you go about finding whether there are grants or whether there's funding available to help you with the costs of producing your book?
So the book that you worked on, I did secure a grant. When I applied to the business company, basically to find funding, you need just to go to your local business support groups, and even the council, and ask them for details. I was actually passed details on to this company, which was the Northeast Business Support Company, NBSL, and they offered me a small grant, and that helped me considerably to get the book produced with you two. So immediately I started looking for more funding for my next book, because it is an expensive process if you want to do it properly. And I was put in touch with a company, it's an agency who apply for funding on your behalf. And it's to do with access to work, and it's to do with the Department of Works and Pensions. So it's very official. It took a whole year to get the funding, to get it processed. I went through quite a few interviews with various people in different departments to check that I was eligible for the funding. And I eventually did get it. So I applied for it in May 2022 and I got it in May 2023. And it's going to be for a year. I'm getting support, admin support and mentoring support. And part of the funding is going towards the editing and proofreading and typesetting and design. And when I originally applied for the fund, they sent me details of prospective people, and they were all in the northeast. They were all like Newcastle upon Tyne based. So this is where I felt that and thought that I had to then use somebody from the northeast. And I am happy with people that are working with me, but they're not the Alexas.
Well, I think we were saying this at the beginning. You know, it's all about it's all about meeting the right people, meeting people, and also not like we're all in competition, but we're not in competition. And as we were saying earlier, before we press record, you could well learn or be given something different to this project that we haven't brought to the project, right? And I definitely feel like you go on a path for a reason. And as sad as it is not working with you again, because you were such an amazing client, this book is going to be whatever it needs to be and produced by these people. And you kind of got, as we were saying before, you kind of got a bit of a USP in the fact that this book is pure Northeast, born, bred, written and produced. Couldn't you? You could almost say. So that's not a bad thing. It's just a shame, obviously, we didn't meet you in for the second book. But if you're going to write a third book, Anne,
I am definitely yes. I am definitely writing. I'm planning on writing 2 books a year.
So you really got the writing bug then. Yeah.
And could you just as well, you mentioned for the funding, if you contact your local business groups, where would you go if you were looking for local business groups? Is that can the council give you a list of people? Because I know there are kind of breakfast club things, aren't there, sometimes?
I think if you contact the council, they'll put you in touch with the business support groups. But I just Googled it. I just went on and just put funding northeast of England, and it came up with a couple of different places. I contacted them, and they actually then put me in touch with the people that I got funding for when I did the book with you. So, and they turned me down originally. They said that my funding application wasn't enough. And then they actually contacted me a week later and said that they would be prepared to fund me for the smaller amount that I put in for.
Presumably that's business group. So presumably there is funding available for non-fiction, but I would imagine there wouldn't be funding available for fiction unless in some way it was related to a business that you ran.
I think that a lot of the funds are there for people who are trying to make a living. So I think that if fiction would still be applicable. I had to actually, to get this funding, I had to attend 4 workshops online with them, but it was actually really, really good because it was to do with marketing, and they gave, and quite often it was a 1-to-1, so I could just go right with my notepad. I've got loads of questions. What should I do? And I actually got the funding, but I actually got free marketing advice, which would have probably cost a lot of money in the long run.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting.
What ad hoc question here? What number 1 marketing tip did you learn from this course in regards to book selling? Could you, I know I'm putting you on the spot.
You are.
I'm sorry.
I think it is to just focus on who your target audience is, and just speak to them and use the language that you know would appeal to them. So we did quite a lot of work on that.
It's so true. It's what Kylie bangs on about in the Northern Lass Lounge, isn't it? Know who your target market is. So true. Yeah. We talk about this all the time, don't we, Alexa?
Yeah, it has to be where you start.
Yeah.
It has, because you have to know who you're trying to reach and who you want to sell to before you start creating the product. Otherwise you're going to miss it.
Now, I have to say, ladies, when I joined your Facebook group, I listened to all your podcasts, and I took a lot of your advice on board, and I set up a Facebook group to promote the how to set up women's circles, and I've got, I think, 140 people in there, and they've stayed on for the next book, and it's really, really good to be asking them questions about, like, what do you think of this color scheme, what do you think of this font, so they feel that they're still involved, which is really, really good. So thank you for that advice.
Well, I mean, we've learned this from Kylie, really, doing from her magic mushroom marvelous group. I never say the right term. Her magical world of mushroom marvelous Facebook group, which she set up at lockdown to do obviously for her book, and she really encouraged me to get our group up and running. And yeah, I mean, it all makes sense, doesn't it? But I mean, we talk about this all the time. Luckily, you hear what we have to say, because a lot of people don't think it's applicable to them. But if you don't know who your target reader is, you're not going to be able to sell your book. It's as simple as that. Because if you don't know who your target reader is, you don't know where your target reader is to sell the book to. So take heed, people listening. And you are preaching to the choir. You are preaching to the choir.
Oh, well, I think that wraps it up. I think I've asked you everything I wanted to ask you. That is really interesting about the funding, and particularly as I'd work on a lot of fiction books as well, and to think that there might possibly be funding that would help people, because as you say, it is an expensive process, but it's important to get it right, because it's a kind of permanent thing. Once it's out there, you can get it reprinted with amends and things, but you want your first print run or your first online appearance to really pack a punch, and there's a lot that goes into that once it's been written. I think something else that authors don't understand as well often is the redrafting process, and they'll write it and there's such a feeling of like, wow, I finished, yeah, but then that's when you need to start working on it, because and some authors will go back and do 4, 5, 6 rewrites, like complete rewrites, before they even submit it for editing. And it's that, and I understand, because it feels a bit kind of like, oh, and is it going to take me the rest of my life to produce this document? But there's just a lot to it. And so, yeah, when you start getting into the editing and the typesetting and the design, it does cost, but then you get something that people will really want to read and have on their bookshelves.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally agree.
I think you said it was called rinsing, didn't you say? When you were
I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, rinsing.
Yeah. So I think my chapter went through about 6 rinses, and I think I had a little bit of a tantrum at one point because I wanted something changed, and she was saying, oh no, well, this is fine. I was going, no, it has to be like this, because it is permanent. It's going to be there, and you want to be so proud of it. I got my own way.
Oh, good. So before we say goodbye, one top tip for new authors who are dipping their toe. They have an idea for a book, a business-related book. They have an idea. What would you say is your top tip for people who are just starting out on their writing journey?
I think not to be too precious about your baby, and be prepared to hand it over to the experts.
Oh, lovely. Nice one. Or as they say in, what is that phrase we keep coming back to for fiction?
Kill all your darlings. Yes.
I think it's true. Don't be too precious. But on the other hand, like you said before, if something has to be a certain way and it's non-negotiable, then be prepared to, say, no, I really want it to be X, Y, and Z. And thank you very much for joining us. Where can we find you?
So I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram. You can find me as Guru Holistics, Facebook Guru Holistics, and I've got a website, and it's guruholistics.co.uk, and you can find all the links to that. If you did buy the book, there is a free resource page on the website that only you can see if you put the code in.
Mm-hmm.
I am available to book for training and for treatments and for women's circles, and I am based in Durham in the northeast of England.
Brilliant. You are actually going to have your own little page on our podcast page. We have our own dedicated page. So you'll have your own little page there. We'll obviously put all the links to where we can find you. And obviously, it's been a delight having you. Thank you so much.
It has, yes. Thank you. It's been lovely to actually talk to you in person.
Yeah, thank you. And we will work together again, ladies, I promise.
That'd be fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, so that's it for this episode. As I said, please go take a look on the website www.thepentopublishedpodcast.com, and you will find all of the links to Anne's resources and where you can go and buy her book. That's it from us today. So it's a bye-bye from me.
And bye-bye from me. And thank you, Anne.
Bye from me.